Our mother was born Theresa Marta Solovey on October 11, 1932. If our father was telling this story, he would add the inconsequential fact that it was a Tuesday. She was born to the Reverend Father Vasil Solovey and Maria Strilbichka Solovey in the village of Pukyov, located in western Ukraine near the city of Rohatyn.
Theresa was the youngest of 7 children. When Theresa was 1 year old, her mother took ill and was bedridden for the next 10 years. Teresa's grandmother, Olympia Strilbichka, took over running the household. As the youngest child, Theresa got into a lot of mischief, since her siblings, who were 7 to 19 years older than her, didn't pay much attention to her whereabouts. If she was caught, her father made her kneel in the corner. If she was lucky, her grandmother saved her by hiding her under her long skirts, thereby circumventing any punishment.
In May of 1944, Teresa's mother died when Theresa was only 11 years old. By then, her brothers had all left the family home. One had been captured and sent to Russia. Another was in Lviv performing with the opera, and the third was with the German SS.
In June, her oldest sister Olympia got married and her husband joined the household.
On July 20th, 1944, what remained of the family escaped in the early afternoon with 2 horse-drawn wagons and a dairy cow. By nightfall that day, Pukyov had been occupied by the Russian army.
The family traveled through Hungary and Slovakia, and by October ended up in Germany in the small village of Schneid, where they remained until 1949.
In 1949, they were moved to a displaced persons camp, or DP camp, in Erlangen, and then to Munich to await immigration to the U.S. The family left for Ellis Island on May 20th, 1950, aboard the USS General C.H. Muir. Once in the United States, our mother was reunited with her widowed Aunt Stefania, and they went to Rochester, New York, to work at Hickey Freeman, a company that produced luxury men's suits. This is where our mother started her illustrious sideline career as a seamstress. In October of 1950, her father received a permanent assignment to a parish in Curtis Bay in South Baltimore. Finally, the family had a place to call home.
Theresa was enrolled at the Institute of Notre Dame High School as a junior. She then attended the College of Notre Dame of Maryland and graduated with a bachelor degree in chemistry in 1956. Shortly after settling in Curtis Bay, our mother met our father, Teodor Caryk, at the wedding of mutual friends, as they were both in the wedding party. During their courtship, Ted attended several college dances, and they made a splash on the dance floor, since, like all proper Ukrainians, they both knew how to tango.
Ted and Theresa were married in 1957 by our grandfather at his parish. The newlyweds moved in with Ted's parents in Baltimore.
Sophia and Nestor were both born in Baltimore.
During this time, and for most of her life, our mother juggled motherhood with a career. The day after graduating from college, she applied for and received a government job at the gerontology section of the Heart Institute in Baltimore.
In 1962, she was hired by NIH in Bethesda, and we moved to Silver Spring.
Life was eventful on Deerfield Avenue. Natalia arrived in 1967, so Theresa started sewing matching outfits for Easter Sundays.
As one of the founding members of the DC chapter of the Ukrainian National Women's League, Theresa became active in the organization. The kids were enrolled in Ukrainian school on Saturdays. Weekends were spent driving to Baltimore to visit their relatives. Celebrations were held to mark birthdays, christenings, Holy Communions, anniversaries, and holidays. We got our first German Shepherd named Chibi.
With 3 growing children, our mother decided the house was too small, so we moved to Kimballwick Road in Potomac.
Kids were chauffeured to Ukrainian school, piano lessons, summer camp, and ballet classes. This was the 70s, so they entertained lavishly, always featuring Teresa's savory pastry stuffed with cabbage, or kapusniaczki, and Ted's famous bourbon cocktail punch. We got another German Shepherd, Socrates. Ted and Theresa had achieved the American dream of a house in the suburbs and solid government jobs. However, they hadn't yet recreated their dream of a native Ukrainian village estate. For that, they bought a gentleman's farm in 1976 in Darnestown. Caryk, as we fondly referred to it, was a rambling house on more than 7 acres,
complete with a 2-car garage that never housed a single car in the entire 38 years they owned it.
It also had a gas pump, a barn, a septic tank that didn't work when the power went out, which was quite often, and 4 paddocks enclosed by miles of wood fencing that was the bane of the family's existence as it required constant repair. Life was good on the Caryk. Ted and Theresa adopted our cousin's horse, Silver, which was shipped from Oregon.
Ted started going to auctions and bringing home baby steer to raise, and then sold the meat to family and friends. Many of you may remember purchasing their organic grass-fed beef before it was even a thing. The property came with 2 barn cats, and before the weasels got them all, we kept chickens for their fresh eggs.
Our parents planted a huge vegetable garden, growing potatoes, garlic, wax beans, tomatoes, and endless amounts of zucchini. Ted was principal of the Ukrainian school at this time, so end-of-school celebrations were held in the backfield, featuring bonfires and hayrides in the bed of our old pickup truck. We got our 3rd German Shepherd, Bismarck.
When Theresa was hired at NIH, it was to work for Dr. Marshall Nierenberg, a young biochemist who had just discovered the first triplet in a sequence of 3 bases of DNA. Within 5 years, his team deciphered the entire genetic code contained in DNA, for which he received the Nobel Prize in 1968. Along with her colleague Norma Heaton, Theresa and Norma are each credited with the contribution of 14 scientific record books documenting their work with Dr. Nierenberg on one of the greatest scientific achievements of the 20th century, opening the way to genetic engineering as we know it today. Theresa
retired from NIH in 1989 after 32 years of service. But that didn't stop her from keeping on going. Theresa's maiden name means nightingale, birds which are known for their powerful and beautiful song. Like her father and siblings, Theresa inherited the ability to sing. As early as her late teens, she was recruited as a cantor for Sunday masses in her father's parish. She continued singing with choirs locally in Baltimore. As part of the Ukrainian National Choir, in collaboration with Dumka Ukrainian Choir of New York, she performed at Carnegie Hall.
Once the grandchildren were born, she became a cross-country traveler, visiting her grandchildren in North Carolina, Colorado, and California.
She could not sit still during retirement, so she started babysitting and chauffeured children to and from school, playdates, dance, sports practices, and horse riding lessons. After selling the Caryk in 2014, she moved to Bedford Court and continues her sewing career doing alterations for residents and friends. She took up jewelry making, which she sells at the church bazaars to benefit the church. She was recently awarded for her 30 years of service as the head of the Marian Society at the Ukrainian Catholic National Shrine of the Holy Family.
Theresa is a seeker of knowledge, never says no, is kind and generous to a fault, and a woman we are proud to call our mother.
Mahalita Mama.